Fresh from SOS number 3 in San Diego. For Carla Vera, you're number 1. For Jen Pages, you're number 2.
Two.
You didn't go to
Mm-hmm.
Tucson?
I didn't know about it.
Damn. Tucson was,
Mm-hmm.
I know they were all great and they get better every year, but Tucson was my favorite because it was the first. We
The
proved that
first
it can
one?
work. Yeah, one day only.
Oh.
Everybody wanted multiple days. Everybody wanted a hotel. And then when we did a hotel, everyone got an Airbnb. So it reminded me of Steve Jobs when he said, "Don't listen to the customers; they don't know what they want," which I
There you
kind of agree with. And then number 3 was like best of both worlds because it's like a resort. We only guaranteed a few number of rooms, which we knew we can do, and it was a destination. People brought their family. I saw people with their moms. Multiple people bring their parents, kids. I wasn't the only one. There was kids there. Like people brought their family. So it was a good time. We had
It was.
these are two legends, Carla Vera and Jen Pages. Carla was on the FDA panel. She got in a few good uh, quotables, but we needed more. And so I wrote down on the notes FDA panel on inadequate monitoring next year. Because when we discussed the
perfect.
Mhm.
fraud in Miami, one of the surprising things that came up was, and I even asked this question during the panel. So we're gonna do that next year, and you'll be the moderator. And then Jen Pages, who has plenty of experience auditing sites, doing SWOT analysis, all this kind of stuff. But you were on stage doing something very different,
It was.
and it resonated with me, surprisingly. I didn't think I would be like the target for that, but it was, go outside and touch some grass, and it's like, yeah, I do need to do that. Like, get outside and take a breath and then come back. Put ice packs on your head. I already knew about that, by the way.
Really?
People don't know my anxiety wars from a decade ago. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh, it
I was
it
going
helps
through
a
it a
lot.
decade ago. Not
Oh no.
divorce, but a bad partnership in
Yeah,
researching.
it will be the
Mhm.
same. It's like a
hmm
marriage.
I
And
learned the I learned the Seroquel. Well, we're not gonna get into all that. But
Yeah.
Jen resonated with me. I was surprised it was that emotional. And that's the one that my wife wanted to watch, but my kid wasn't cooperating, so
Oh my
Oh,
God.
she had
I
to
Let
stay.
me, you know what? As a person seeing this in the as an on the audience, and I went through a similar situation, like, well, not a similar situation, divorce, separation, whatever. I can remember, like, I can still remember feeling that I didn't want to wake up and get out of bed to do work. And I remember a couple of people that would tell me, business is business and personal is personal. But when you are the business, how do you get it done? And people didn't empathize. And I wasn't saying as, just I wouldn't do my job. It's just it will take longer. It's not as a quality, but have a little confidence that it will get done, or support me. If I'm struggling writing a report, get on a phone call with me and see if I can help me out and write it with me or something. You know what I'm saying? Just that little boost. And it was hard to actually find people that will do that. In this case, like, for example, Jen, being as a director, I don't know her team, but having a coordinator or someone that's saying, we can make it, you're going to go through this. Sometimes the little things do
Well, I
do
was
come a
surprised
long
Jen's
way.
clients. I mean, we've hired consultants or even for our own employees, if they're going through some shit, I'm like, you just need to take time off. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like
Mhm.
we're not gonna pay you. We have a certain amount of days will you get paid, but we'll take a break from paying you as well, and then you take a break from, you need to figure your shit out. Like I've been in that space too. Not to the
Yeah.
extreme you guys have, but for like a 1 week period, it was rough, and I messed around with Seroquel, which I learned you're gonna build a tolerance to it real quickly, real quickly. I didn't
Yeah.
tell you guys my Seroquel story. My business
Mm,
partners back
No.
then, they like ambushed me, like, what is this? What is that? All this. And I learned from since then, CIA classes, they're like, never never defend yourself when you're emotional.
Never.
But I didn't know that back then, so I was like, no, no, you guys, this and that. He's like, well, and one of them was an attorney,
Mm.
blah blah blah. So I went home. I'm like, damn, this is the worst anxiety I ever felt. So we had samples at the clinic for our Seroquel, and I got them, and one of them was like, I think they're 50. I took like a 1/4 or even 1/8, like a small chunk, and I just swallowed it. Within 3 minutes, I'm like, I don't care about anything. This is good. Nothing matters. But then the next day, I needed a little bit more, and the next day, a little bit more, and then I realized, well, this is why people build a tolerance. Seroquel
Yep.
has weight gain. I can't be taking like 10 pills a day at some point, and like I need to figure this shit out the way
Yeah.
Jen said on that stage, get outside, do some
Mm-hmm.
exercise,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ice bath. I started doing ice showers. You don't care when you turn that cold water on, you don't give a fuck about anything else. So the
Mm-hmm.
ice
You
shower,
don't. You don't care about anything at all.
nope. But that's your talk was incredible, and then next
Mm-hmm.
year we'll see what we could. I was surprised, like I said, that one. I was just in there like see how you're doing. I was messing around with you a bit,
Yeah.
but like I wasn't expecting to actually to be
Gain something from it.
somewhat moved. I was like, oh shit,
Uh-huh, me too.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was in there like trying to mess around, and then I'm like, oh no, this is serious.
Yep, it's
I,
deep.
it's so funny because I realized how serious everybody was taking it when I tried to make a joke and nobody laughed, and I was like, "Oh, it's hitting!" Like I was like, "Okay,
Yeah, Hannah
let
had
me
the
just
best
stay
joke.
on pace." Huh?
Hannah had the best joke right after you because she said
I
it's
told
hard
her
to.
it.
And I
Oh,
have
you
to
told
follow
her
up
that joke?
after that.
Yeah, she's like, I gotta follow up after that so you get stressed out, then you could sell your site. I
I was
was
like,
like,
I was like,
ah,
"Hey, do you need a break? Come sell your site." And she started dying
exactly.
laughing.
That's a good. Oh, Jen's a ghostwriter. We can get you writing jokes.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know.
So maybe Carla on the FDA stuff because we all have experience. I've never been FDA audited, but I've worked with clients. I've done like as a consultant like the pre-FDA preparation for clients.
Mhm.
But you've seen the worst, you've personally like in our last episode removed IP from a site
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
was abusing it. And then we're gonna get into inadequate monitoring, but just for the sites out there, like some of the case studies maybe or some of the stuff you didn't get a chance to talk about on the
Ye-
panel.
Yep, yep. So, and thank you, Jen and Dan, for supporting me on this one. Because you see, I think that a lot of the new site owners, that they're entrepreneurs, they want to do this right, and they just don't have the right guidance. So, uh, as you and I can agree, it's better to see what other people has done wrong, so we don't do it, right? And it's just not okay, this is what you'll do. I'm actually giving you the consequences and why that cannot be done the way, that people like will rush it off. Oh, do whatever and see how it comes. Unfortunately, research has to be everything documented, and it's really important that we do that correctly. So just to point a couple of scenarios, like I was telling you and the FDA panel, we have to understand a lot the expectation of the client when we sit down and take the feasibility. And I know we spoke this with Jen too. Uh, don't get studies just because you don't have anything else to do. If you don't have the patient population, don't get on it because it's gonna cost you more money and you're not gonna end up in a good side of the sponsor regardless because you don't have the patients unless you start looking for them. And here is the gray areas where you need to see what it's correct and what is not correct. So, for example, I here in Florida, and I remind you, I have San Francisco back here, but it's not true.
I
It's all a
like the way
delusion.
Florida looks back there.
It's all a delusion.
Never looked better.
So, so I have known of sites even targeting sometimes even the special population or the protected population, homeless people and
Oh
things like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
to do research studies, which it helps them at some point, but not if they're so vulnerable to
You
it.
know what they
So,
do in LA back in the day? I don't know if they probably still do. They would rent these motel for an
mhm.
inpatient study, and they would cross people over from Tijuana
Wow,
and give them like, $200 for the month and then cross them back
wow.
when the
Yeah,
study's
no,
over.
I have never heard of that. I have never heard of that.
Oh
I have
yeah.
heard of bands picking up people from like homeless, having them do the best study, paying them and bringing them right back.
They do that.
So,
Yep.
yep. So, I mean, and if it's if it's nothing wrong, if it wasn't so vulnerable population that you're getting them from the street. If you're
Yeah,
getting them from
yeah.
their home, that's another situation.
But the
I
gray
think
But
the
area
whole
there.
time. Sorry. I
No, no, I
think
was
the
just
whole
gonna say that because the homeless in LA, like they have these board and care, but like they're not really live there, but they kind of do. So they use that. I know the sites that would use that as their address, even though
mhm,
it's not
mhm.
really like it's just a
An address.
homeless shelter address. So that's not a
Mhm.
gray area. That's like, well, that's a homeless shelter, but it means they don't have a home. You
Correct, which it will be a vulnerable population at that point.
Yes.
and I
Sorry,
think
Jay.
the reason that they don't allow it is because these people unfortunately like they need the money, and so
Hmm.
like even for they're coerced even for $10, so it's like one of those
Correct.
things that it's like you have to
Correct.
be careful because you don't want them any cohesion at all, because if the FDA can just see even a little bit, that's it, like you can get
You're done.
But
Yeah.
'didn't
480
Miami clean up?
easily.
Hasn't Miami cleaned up their homelessness? Unlike
Yeah,
LA.
no, we don't have a lot of homeless people here. I know there's some locations that there is Target, like I think I want to say like
Downtown.
Camilito's home, is Target there, but like I haven't heard it recently, but before, a lot of people would go there and try to get patients from there and bring it to the clinic and put them right back. But I
But
haven't heard in a long time.
from your
Oh no,
experiences, though, what's that?
still happens. It still happens.
It
I've
still happens.
so you work with like some recruiters or whatever, patient recruitment and stuff like that, and they'll come one day and they'll bring like 10 patients to you, and like you're like, okay, can I have everybody's ID? And their ID is literally Camilla's house, and I'm like, oh no, we can't. I'm sorry, we don't have like
Mm-mm.
the proper ICF for you, or just like, because you can, if there's like a certain ICF that identifies that population, like it's
Protects
cool,
for
but we
vulnerable
didn't.
people. Yeah.
So you're
Exactly,
saying
but
it
we
boils down to like the virtue of the how you handle the scenario boils down to the individual site owner, which is, if you're
yeah.
asking me, and I know some of these site owner, it's a dangerous thing to leave the
Hmm.
virtue. It's not like the IRB audits. I've been doing this 21 years. I've only had one time an IRB audit, and it's because we kept submitting the same deviation over and over again. So they're like, what the hell are these guys doing? They come out there. But like they don't come for this. The FDA, for as far as I'm concerned, they don't even care about this. They care about quality GCP. They don't necessarily care who these patients are. They're not looking like detectives where these patients are actually coming from.
They
No, not
do
when you're submitting the
sometimes.
data, but once they go in and at your site, they will be looking at that as a
Uh,
detective. Like they want
I
to
see.
figure out where this patient come from. Especially you don't have medical records or history, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm.
It's true.
If the patient doesn't have any medical record or history, that would be a problem. Like I know from one place, even the inspector called because they were seeing a lot of patients with lost to follow up and lost to follow up and lost to follow up, and the inspector like went ahead and called one time and to one of the patients, and the patient answered, and funny enough the note will say the phone was disconnected and it was not. So she called, got in touch, and she said the patient said no, they never called me back. So there you go,
Wait,
that's a
so they
problem.
called the patient?
Yeah, they're able to call the patient. Yes, they have the
Like,
authority to call the
Wow.
patient.
I've
Correct.
actually had an auditor, not an FDA auditor, but I had an auditor come and ask me, and she was like, "Hey, why do so many patients have the same last name?"
There you go.
And I was like, what do you mean? They're family. Like, that's okay. They all suffer from the same thing. Like, what's wrong with that? No, no, no. I'm just making sure because I just want to make sure they're not the same person. But she even checked the addresses of the people, like all of
I
this. But I
see.
mean, what she was looking at didn't matter essentially for that study because I mean, they could live in the same house and both be on the study. That's not illegal. But she was like, they check stuff. So if I
Yeah.
would have put someone whose
Hmm.
address was Camilla House, they would have noticed. Like, you know what I mean? And then
Yes.
you can get in trouble. Yeah.
I see.
Hmm. Hmm.
What would be the consequences though? Like the FDA can't fine you, right? The FDA can
It's ethical.
they can
What do you
It's
mean?
debar the
I
PI. Like they can debar the PI from doing research, but if they think it's crime, they have to refer to the DOJ. That's where
Yeah,
people
um
like
well,
Edie get
yeah,
involved.
it's
yeah,
just
you can get
ethical. It's not a crime, I don't think. It's like ethically
uh
not right. And that's why they have the IRB with this the ethics committee and they would
no,
basically
remember that also it's been covered in the Code of Federal Regulations as well. So
okay.
it can become a civil suit. So it is, and
Yeah.
it could become a DOJ
Like the one right now, the one
issue.
happening right now in Miami that Carl and I went like 2 hours on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
With
Which I got
the
some
freaking
hate.
guy. Well, I don't care. I mean, yeah, I got hate for having you on. And it's like, well, what do you want me to not ask questions or I don't know. Should we not discuss this? Uh, the CRO owner is like
Hmm.
a, allegedly hands dirt in the whole process. Like, first of all, between you guys, I'm not gonna try to do dirt knowingly. But if I'm a CRO owner and I know there's some dirt going on, I'm not putting my own hands in there. You know, I'm like staying layers away from it and like, what are we documenting? Like, I'd prefer not to do it at all. But if you already know you're in some shit, you don't go in there and like do more of it, of of the shit. And this allegedly, that's what's happening. It's civil. It's civil. And
It's a
then
civil suit. Yeah.
potentially criminal later, but that takes years, according to
Yes.
Edie.
Correct. And there is a second part. Actually, there is a response from the last portion that we saw. There's a response from the sites and the CRO battling what the allegedly from the sponsor was, and it's like 500 pages long. So we have to do another one for that one.
Yeah, I
It
lost
becomes
touch with
a,
that one.
it becomes a little bit crazy. But yeah, so let me just let's go back to the beginning because we always wandering everywhere here. So here is like a little bit of the things that I was trying to say in the panel is that a lot of people do believe that only the principal investigator will get in trouble um,
Mm-mm.
if something happens, and this is incorrect. Correct. This is we have cases where the sub investigators and coordinators do get in trouble. They
Jail.
go
I've
get
seen jail.
yep, yep. They have to
Even
enter
front desk. Hmm.
plea deals and jail. Correct. You guys are
Yeah.
As
correct.
long
And
as
I
you
have
know about it, you're part of
correct
the
conspiracy.
case. Hmm. Yeah.
Yep. So you have to be very careful. And then Damien was going to bring a lot of a big point about this too, because a lot of the how sites are also running, and I'm not saying all the sites, but a few of them is that they put a lot of responsibilities on the coordinator,
Oh,
and the coordinator
all
is
of it.
assessing AEs, it's assessing vital signs, whether it's clinical, not clinical significant, but
It's
you know,
insane what we do. So I always tell people, research is a house of cards. Even if you remove fraud, just
mm-hmm.
forget, pretend fraud doesn't exist. It's still a house of cards. You've got coordinator doing everything, and then like they get burned out. Maybe they don't watch Jen's talk and they get burned out. And then the everything falls apart at that site. And this happens, the billions of dollars are put into getting new drugs out, and it all boils down to the coordinator, who
Hmm.
sometimes is like, I want to find another job, and like it's
Correct.
a complete house of cards. I don't know if the site networks are changing it or making it worse. I hope they're changing it for the better and systematizing things so it's not all dependent on one person. But the way I see it, it's mostly boils down to like a coordinator somewhere, even with
Correct.
no
But they
fraud.
Correct. But the coordinator needs to know where the responsibility ends, because it's not fair that a coordinator, it's putting in this position, and then when shit hits a fan, they're gonna also be responsible for civil and criminal causes when it's that the PI was not there or the supply was not there. So
So what are some example of fraud that people are maybe surprised about? Obviously, making up patients that don't exist, that's obviously everybody knows that's fraud. But
yeah,
what about
so
like, what else? There's other example
I
from
think
these case studies.
I think what she was saying is definitely one of them. Where you have the coordinator signing off on, like, say, the source document that they did train that they trained the site on the diet and exercise, and they did the counseling, or they did like a physical exam, and they signed off on it, and they say, oh, no, I just filled it in for the doctor. No, you cannot do that. Either the doctor has to sign after to make sure that they're confirming that they did it and that they agree with everything that was put in, or you can't sign it at all and they have to do it. You know what I mean? But I think that's a big finding that they find a lot, that coordinators are signing off on things that only medical professionals can.
mhm,
Like wet ink, or you're talking about e-signing?
both.
All of it.
Mhm.
And then there'll be like no signature from the PI at all.
Oh yeah, that we spoke a little bit about all that during the meeting. In this,
Mhm.
okay, the
Go
one
and
of the
get into
biggest
that more.
ones,
The
yeah, one of the biggest findings for the FDA is PI oversight. And again, sites were used to having, our source documents with yes, no, and a little signature for the PI to like make him express. And even though it's easier for us to run the site, it doesn't mean that it's just correct. We need to have some kind of note, sort of like whenever you go to your doctor's office, there is a progress note saying everything that they saw at the moment. It doesn't have to be as big, but there has to be something.
Need to be a
Some,
narrative.
yeah, something correct.
Another
Because
thing I noticed when I would go audit, and I don't let it happen at my site, but people get lazy, is the same progress note every time,
oh
like,
my God, no,
Yeah,
please.
they
yeah,
copy and shit. Yes.
yeah. Well, it's like, well, I mean, I get that it's easier and that really nothing changed. I get it, but if you're doing it for everyone, it becomes like, I mean, somebody has to read this, and the progress note is the narrative of the entire story.
Correct.
Like everything else already a template, and standardized. The notes are supposed to be unique
So
and
now,
not
and
not copy and
imagine
pasted.
And imagine that you request this is really simple. Imagine that you request your medical records from your doctor's office and all of the business is the same template and the only thing that changes is a bottle. Would you be comfortable with that doctor seeing you again?
No, I mean, even like in the private practice, when you go see a doctor, they're always typing or dictating.
Correct. Correct. So the expectation is not something that's unusual, it's something that is already in the practice. Another thing also for sites is that when we give the patient the medication for inclusion, like we have to make sure, let me get back, too many thoughts at once. So inclusion exclusion criteria is not only, putting that you agree, you have to kind of confirm that the patient is eligible, and you don't have to be a big narrative, but like the way I do my inclusion exclusion criteria is that I go through each point, so the PI or the doctor, so by whoever is signing, they can actually see at a glance if the patient qualifies or not. And that's a
Yes,
good
no.
practice.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's a good practice. There's people that will only put like, did they meet the inclusion criteria, yes or no? And it's just one thing instead of the whole thing. And what that shows to the inspector or the auditor is that you took time to like review each one of them
Line by
and
line.
make sure, yeah. And I know it seems silly and it's very small, but it actually helps when you're in an inspection audit.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think that also helps with knowing the protocol, because I mean, a lot of 483s are because the person didn't know the protocol and they did something completely different. And so,
Mhm.
something that we were talking about, me and Carla were talking about, is making sure you're sourced. Like I do my source documents for sites or for my own sites. I make sure that so you can pick someone off the street and they can follow it like to
Mm-hmm.
the T as per protocol. Like that's how I have my sources. And it really does help because you don't know the protocol. It's okay. It's right there. And I even put like clips of like the protocol where it references that, let's say that procedure, whatever. And I put it reference it because I'm really trying to minimize the deviations. We gotta
Correct.
follow the
Correct. And then when you think about these big institutions, and remember, I'm phase ones by trade, so because the amount of staff that they're training, they're not necessarily uh, research knowledge. They're just phlebotomists, lab processors. So what they'll do is exactly what Jen is saying. They will put the like reference to the portion that involves their job, and we have that in a clip, and it's ready for if I come in the street tomorrow, as long as the doctor have delegated me to be a part of the study and train. I don't have to be refreshed. I can see everything in one spot and it's done and over with. Also, but also that helps if the person is not really knowledgeable to accommodate their data when they're entering. So it's just really have the person well trained into what they need to do and what they don't need to do. I mean, I have other inspectors that would rather have the narrative than a source. So it really depends on the style of the person that they want to do.
Another FDA thing that they catch a lot is delegation log. So when I was project manager, it was the craziest thing to me. But I would get delegation logs and I'd be like, wait, didn't you already grant access to this person to EDC? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, but the PI hasn't signed off on them being
Mm-hmm.
trained on the
Mm-hmm.
study. So why
Mm-hmm.
would you do that? And it was like it was almost like, what do you mean? I can wait until the next visit. I go, no, but it still has to be signed before they get any access, before they start anything on the study. And I feel like that's a big way when I had an FDA auditor at our place, in Harmony, that's the first thing he mentioned. He's like, the first thing I check is the delegation log because
The
you have
luck.
no idea people that you'll see doing procedures and are not delegated it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've
that's a big
noticed this.
finding.
I was gonna bring that up too because when I monitored big institute where Carla's background is, big academic centers there.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's the worst.
yeah, it's one of they would have DOA like every time I go, it's a different nurse doing something. They had like 30 to 50 different like nurses on a carousel, and none of them are on the DOA log. And then when I asked, but they said in our SOP, nurses are not on there unless they're doing something else. So I took it to the sponsor and let them deal with it, but I did note it, and it's up to the FDA how they see that. But that it's very common also for
Yeah,
It
academic
depends on
yeah.
the
centers.
delegation log because on the delegation log itself, it says unless signed off on, the person cannot do any study procedures.
In
So I mean, if they're
oncology,
doing
it's different.
anything, then
I learned in
yeah.
oncology it's different because it's standard of care, like they would do it anyways, but
Yep,
that's how they get away with it in oncology.
correct. And
Mhm.
also for dialysis studies, they also get away with it too, because the
Ah,
person who is also doing the actual research is not the person who's serving the dialysis. So, and it cannot be mixed.
yeah.
But we had SOPs and procedures that will different that. So and very clear specific onto what role is who and who is what, but not in a like if I go to your site, I wouldn't expect to find anything like that, right, Dan?
Well, no, we only have like five
Yeah,
people,
right.
but they're all on it. You'll find
Yep.
other things, but not
And
like that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever's in my SOP, right? So that's what defends you also from. And so I was on the panel last year, Dan, for SOPs. I know you were wondering. You were on it last year, remember? It was like the first panel, and I was on it.
Last
It
year
was
I didn't
Brad,
see
me,
any
Judy.
panel. I was doing
Well,
podcast. My
I
bad.
kind of got into I kind of got into it with someone else on the panel, and we
Good.
were
Who?
arguing because
Throw them
I'm
out
not
there.
saying no, and we were kind of arguing, and he's
No.
like, I have six SOPs, that's it, and I'm like, but you use the SOPs to also cover yourself, like, yeah, but then I
Correct.
have to follow them, and I was like, yeah, you have to follow them, but if you don't, you just document why you couldn't, and
Wait,
that's
what do you
it. We're
mean I have
human.
six? Like six different versions?
Six
No, six
total.
SOPs for to run the clinic.
Total.
Yeah.
Oh, you're supposed to have like 50 something. Mine is like in the 60 almost.
I
Six
think mine's are in the
sections?
Yeah, what?
just six diff SOP 1, SOP 2, like that's it. I think he had like ICF, he had like very little. And I was
Uh,
like, yeah, but look, for example, I would have one for monitoring, right? And because I, no offense to monitors, but like you need
I'm
to like
listening.
schedule 4 weeks in advance unless there's something urgent. You know what I mean? Cool. I'll work with you. You can come by, but like you have these things because you want to make sure that you're also protecting yourself
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
you don't want to overburn your workers, your staff. You know what I mean? Because then they're like, oh no, 2 days, hold on, and then like everybody's nervous, and then stress is high. And
mm-hmm.
when you're stressed out, you're gonna make mistakes. And so like for me,
Regardless.
it's always been really big for me to have like SOPs that not only protect our site, but also protect like the monitors that they come in. Make sure that they're being treated right. Like I put that in the SOPs as well. That we have a certain standard that we have to treat our monitors as, like because all of that should be included in SOPs. It's part of what represents your company.
yeah, but there's like an art to SOP, which I
You have to be
understand.
flexible too.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
I have business manual that is
There
not
you go.
Mhm.
really for the FDA or a sponsor, just internal. It's like for our staff, this
Yeah.
is how we should do things. And then there's the SOP, which is not different. It's just the SOP is more generic. Like this is
Yeah.
Credo, this is the E-Reg, this is scheduling patients, this is IP. What's another one? Anytime a monitor asks you, do you have a SOP for this? And we don't, I'll make one.
Archiving,
Archiving, yeah,
IP,
yeah. Destruction of
Infocom
IP,
set,
destruction IP,
Even labs.
Infocom sent.
lab,
No,
everything.
there is 5 or 6
Mhm.
I always have to request because it's not because I want them, it's because my client, I need to make sure that I review it so it meets a client standard. So it's the info consent one. That's a typical everyone requests. The IP management and delegation and
Destruction.
management, destruction and everything like that. Archiving usually monitors wait for the close of visit. I usually request it at the beginning because I know they will forget. The other one is what is it? Oh, if you're using an electronic system, I need to
Yeah.
make sure all is validated and system. And there is
But
another
those
one I usually
e-systems,
request.
if you have a good vendor, they have those template for you that
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
modify.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can just modify adverse
Yeah.
event and SAEs
Adverse event, yeah.
management, safety. And I think those are the ones like we mainly request.
Yeah, there's an art to the SOP. I don't agree with that person on your panel that they only had six. I think you
Yeah.
need more than that.
Yeah, you do.
But I
Just to
agree with
But
you
it's like
that,
also it protects you. So like if something's in the
yeah.
protocol and like if like oh we don't do it that way or whatever, like I've seen academic centers that they're like, oh no, I know it's your protocol, but this is how our SOP is and we have to do it this way. And it saved them from deviations and
Yep,
stuff
yep.
because they'll send it over to the sponsor and the sponsor will be like, okay, well we can't give them deviations. That's the way they did it.
Well, that
And
DOA
that's the
log
way
was
we
one.
agreed to.
The DOA
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
log was one on that academic center's SOP. Well, it's not in our SOP. It's in our SOP that nurses that only do infusions do not get put on delegation. So
Hmm.
it saved them in that case too. So you're right.
Yeah.
But the more detail you put in the SOP, the
The more you
more
can get in trouble.
liability, yeah, because you have to follow it. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
But
the
what
art is
I
to make it like generic enough,
mm,
Yeah.
but
mm,
also,
my
But you have
recommendation, go ahead, Jen.
yeah. No, go ahead.
My recommendation has always been is like do your practice and make sure that your SOP follows your practice. I mean, you
yeah.
don't wanna overdo the purpose is not to, not to let you do your practice or complicate it. It's not reinvented the wheel, it's follow what you already do and put it on a paper.
But that means as your
Yeah.
practice evolve, you have to change it because I read my SOP from 5 years ago when we started Yuma
Yeah, it's not gonna be the same.
last year, and me and my site director were like, we gotta change a lot of this because we've already changed since 5 years ago. But we do have different version. Like since I've been here, we have like 6 versions now, different updates. So I think most
Mhm.
sites do that, but I think some of the newer sites don't. They just get one SOP and they're like, here you go, and like they never change it, which
No, I know,
And
and I
then
have
people don't realize that they have to, sorry, that they have to be trained too every year, like retrained to make sure that they still know the SOPs and stuff.
have to be signed off.
Mm-hmm.
Every year?
Yeah,
That's
like
also a finding that happens every two
every every,
years.
every 2
Okay.
years. That's what I figure.
Yeah, I think we do that.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
shout out to Creo. It gives you reminders of when signatures are needed again.
Oh,
But
that's
we just did
great.
ours, so we're good. Uh,
So what
anything else
else?
from those case
Uh,
studies?
let's see. Oh, kappas. That's another big one because even though the sites are responding to the warning letter or whatever the FDA found, the 483 or on inspection and auditor, the kappas are not coming back with the value that it needs. Like you cannot put in the kappa the root cause, a person like, the personnel didn't understand correctly. That's not the kappa. The kappa would be an issue of your training. The root cause, it would be a training issue, not the person not understanding correctly and
Right.
things of that nature. So, and your solution is never going to be I fire the staff and got new one. No, that's not how it works. So we had several where and you can look at the warning letters and the responses where they say issue a kappa, they come back and they send all this evidence, but it's not targeting what is needed, but targeting more people rather than the actual issue. So I feel like there is a lot of
Mm,
education that needs to be done with kappa, and the reason why we do a kappa and how to address those better. Like you cannot say in a kappa, I'm gonna train my staff for doing this and then not provide the evidence of the training, or the training is
right.
something really not really within what I needed to be trained, things of that nature.
And I think it's also it continuing to happen after you do the kappa. So like you can do a kappa and all that's great, but if the same thing keeps happening, it's like, did you really do what you said in the kappa? Because kappa is
Um,
also preventative.
so here's the answer. No. They they don't. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, one of the things that I think may be a good thing from all the consolidation is that research sites start getting more professional about how they operate. I think that's kind of the site network's strength, honestly. Now, if they actually do it or not is gonna be seen, but at least they have the capability to police these kind of things internally. So we should, in theory, see less fraud the more sites
Yeah,
consolidate.
exactly. And then what is it that they doing fraud? Is it because they want to get the patient in, or is it because they don't know when the patient is in how to handle that error? Because it's,
They do fraud to
what
make money.
I
I think
know
yeah,
is, so
They
it
it
would
do
be
fraud.
makes
for
money.
for
There.
entering recurring or entering the patient. You think that's what it is, or do you think that
Yeah,
maybe they got the patient in and there was an error and they tried to cover it up?
Well, that's both.
I think both.
They do
Yeah.
fraud to get
Yeah.
patients in that don't belong,
Okay,
Hmm.
number one. And
okay.
then the better sites are covering up for their mistakes. Like, that's not fraud. If you accidentally randomize someone,
Yeah, that's
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 not
what I
fraud.
was gonna say. That's
Yeah.
not a fraud. That's not fraud. That's just, you make an error
Yeah.
and you say, look, I had the
That
error.
happened
This is how
actually,
we're gonna
it
fix
happened to
it.
us on a study here in Yuma, and the sponsor said just go ahead with it. It's okay. Um,
Hmm.
a monitor actually caught that one. So I know it's inadequate monitoring. This one was adequate monitoring because it was a really hard one to find too. Like everyone
Hmm.
missed it. The sub-I who's really on top of things missed it.
And it
The
might be just a number that just got, because I remember those little IVRSs, and they will give you like the number 146699, and I went and I gave 146669 instead of 66.
no, in this case it was a prohibited med that the patient actually we documented they were on, but the patient was actually not on it. But the
Okay,
coordinator saw the history and just wrote everything that was on there, but the patient actually was not on it. So on paper it looked like a
it was,
deviation. Yeah.
yeah, but it
But
was
that's
not
not
in
fraud.
reality.
But like fraud would be like,
That's a mistake. And that's
Exactly.
understandable as long
Exactly.
as you can explain it. And
Yeah.
also, they FDA inspectors, they don't mind. It's the cover up. Now you're trying to go
Yeah.
back and be like, oh, we're gonna redo this paper. I'm gonna go to Korea and put
Right.
this note to
Right.
file and put a on. So, and we can find it. Like if you go to Korea and we can see the audit records. If you go on paper, even if you take it out of paper, we're gonna see it in the paper record. And if we do a over the shoulder check and it's that patient and it's not the same, Lord behold, it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
So i will I will eventually find it.
Fraud would be like in psychiatry, this
Fraud would be
happens
like
all the time. If
a
you
diary
a
and someone.
diary, well,
A diary.
that's clear. You're just making up data. But fraud would be like in psych. We had psych sites. This is what a lot of site owners would do. Patient needs to be on Seroquel, right? Okay. Most of them bring their records. Some don't. And you're like, okay, well, bring your bottles with you. We'll make a copy of the bottle. They bring a bottle, but it's not their bottle. It's like a friend's bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And the coordinator, like, not motivated to check. So they just make a Xerox of the bottle. But then you realize later, well, that was not actually their bottle. They just brought it to get in the
Yeah.
study, you know? And that's like kind of in between fraud and not, because you're supposed to catch that even though you're not instructing patient like
Exactly,
bring it,
exactly.
but you have to document at some point. How do you check? Well, how do you know that they're on the right ones?
So and also it's about the caring of the patient, because if the patient is a patient safe to be in the study? And if it's not,
Right.
why did you enter him in the study? So
Yeah.
it's a lot about caring about the patient. That's right. It's kind of hard to find that balance where it's too much and what's not too much. I'll tell you another case I had. I was doing my monitoring visits, and in order to enter the study, the women have to provide some documentation saying that they were hysterectomy. They had a total hysterectomy. And just not taking the word for it will be fine. You have to provide some kind of, you
Mm-hmm.
know, imaging report, which is fine. They were reporting that. So I go to a site, I see the form, and I'm like, okay, two, three people with the same form. There was a from previous studies. I'm like, okay, maybe, but when I go to another site and I start finding the same form, and then I was like, did you request this from medical records from the person? No, because the person brought it. And how about the person, just did a PDF and just change the information? Oh, we don't have to go that far. Well, yes, you do, because if the person gets pregnant in your study, there's a reason why they want a
You're
person put on.
screwed.
Yeah, you're really screwed. So they went back, and lo and behold, some of these patients never had the surgery. So again, it's
Wow.
not the site responsibility, but you don't want to have that liability later on in the study.
Yeah, and my guess would be if that patient were to get pregnant, all of a sudden they'd be a loss to follow up. We can't find her.
Mm-hmm,
She
mm-hmm.
withdrew consent. We don't know why, and that's it. So this
Yeah,
stuff
yeah, yeah.
happens way more than. That's why I say it's a house of cards. I mean, uh, I don't. I hope the site networks professionalize things more. I think they will, but there's always going to be the incentive to kind of cut corners for some. And I think it boils down to the individual's like ownerships. Do you want to have a business like that, or do you try to do as best you can? And to me, it's the latter, like what's the point of committing fraud? Like, how do you feel about yourself if you know that putting these drugs out to market that you contributed with fake data?
I
I just,
know.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It's not worth it. There's, first of all, easier ways to make money than research is actually a pretty difficult business.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, and then you have so many, and how many of those drugs have been pulled from the market because of this issue?
Very few. They've been pulled because of like, they all of a sudden discover something new.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
when in reality it was like, well,
It's something that wasn't reported
yeah,
during this
Exactly.
study.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
high. I remember what was, I think I was a CTM, but I remember speaking with a site and they were like, yeah, but if I report every little thing, like my job just gets harder and then it's just a lot more. And I'm just like, yeah, but this isn't about your job. This is about the safety of the medication. So like if you're not reporting, because like even like let's say vomiting, like you don't know if it is from the drug or not. Like, you know, and
Right.
that's why they ask you to report everything and put if you think it's related or not later on in the data. So like after they do database locks and they actually like look at the data, they determine, oh wait, a lot of people were throwing up even though they said they didn't know if it was possibly related or that it wasn't related. Maybe it is. And then they go deeper into it, maybe the next study, and then they have to make sure that vomiting isn't a side effect.
So do
You
you
know what I
think the
mean? So it's just
solution is to give patients more diaries?
No.
no,
I'm not trying to make a joke, by the way. I'm like being serious. Like, if the patients
no.
don't know what is a lie, like they don't know what the actual IE says, so they're gonna put,
Hmm.
and especially if they're electronic, they can't be forged, right? So, like a lot of the sponsors were thinking about doing this, like just give the patients the responsibility of reporting their AEs, and the coordinators check them and then document.
Mm-mm. No, because you're having someone who isn't trained in research to report things that they have no idea about. Like,
Right, but
you know
then
what I
you have
mean?
the coordinator confirm it.
We'll like clean up what is it to be. Well, we end up in the same thing because
Yeah, because then you're gonna whatever they entered is really what it
it's
was,
gonna
and
be,
there's gonna be
yeah.
patients that are gonna be like, "Oh, I don't want to have to enter all this stuff all the time." Because
Right,
if you say vomiting, it's gonna ask you more questions.
right.
So a lot of patients will be like, "No, no, 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 everything's good."
But at least you have the patient deciding, no, I think this was important or I don't, because they felt it, as opposed
Yeah,
to
I can see
a
that.
coordinator. I mean their sponsors are doing this. They just don't want to burden the patients with too much. And you know the
Well,
real dirty secret, I think the sponsors prefer the sites do exactly what you said and not report the things they don't think is important, as long
Mm-hmm.
as they
Mm-hmm.
don't cross the line of the FDA has a problem with it. I think the sponsor
So
prefer that.
that's a
that's why they
great.
have special events one. Like there's like
Mm-hmm.
special interest of one that they're
Yes,
really
yes,
that's where they
Mm-hmm.
AESI, yes.
yeah. Uh-huh.
And they do have a bracket that they have to meet because I had some of them that had a lot of AEs, but they were not related. But still, once they hit the bracket of AEs, it's gonna have to get reviewed. I mean, because the medication either is working or not working. If it's not
Yeah.
working because you came already with a condition and it's just getting worse,
Hmm.
or you were on placebo. So they don't like so many AEs because you know it's gonna hinder their drug in some way, even though it doesn't have anything to do
Right.
with related or not related,
Have you guys ever
but it
been
has to be
told?
reported.
So when I was coordinating, I thought it was the weirdest thing, but I was told by a sponsor to remove some AEs I documented. And they were
Yeah,
like,
me
that's not
too.
really a AE.
Yeah,
And I was like, well, but I already documented it. Or like, and then they had an electronic thing. Why would I remove it if we get audited? Like, they're gonna look at the trail, and yeah, I'm gonna say you told me not to. Do you want to send me an email to tell me that?
correct.
And then they said no, would do it by phone. And I said, well, if you send me an email, I'll do it because I'll just blame you. But if not, then I'm just gonna leave it because the sponsor didn't
Um,
want that on their data.
correct,
And this was a
correct. And
big sponsor, not a small one.
worsening, for me, was a worsening condition. So they were like, this shouldn't be, and me as a monitor, because I was supposed to let the doctors know how they wanted to have this qualify, right?
Hmm.
So it was a worsening condition, and they were like, not necessarily because it already came in the study, and that's what I was saying, because there was no efficacy,
Hmm.
nothing proved that so they wanted to change a little bit the wording, and I'm like, no, we can't do that. I'm not a doctor, you're not seeing the person was a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but you're not seeing the patient there. So it's hard for us to assess whether it's worsening or not. The only one that has a saying is the person was in front of him, whether it's PI or SOBI. That's why they're putting it this way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a couple of things like
But that
that where
I think you know how
uh,
we're talking about fraud, right? Isn't that fraud on the pharmaceutical side? Like, you know what I mean? They're trying to sway the
yeah,
data so that they're
yeah,
to get
but
Well,
and you
approved.
know what? I did try to do my compliance with this. Like not become a whistleblower, but I was trying to tell them that not to do that. But they didn't understand. They went ahead, and actually, there is no way like for people just to send and especially independent contractors. I don't know if you have another person come on online and say the same thing, Dan, but monitors we get exposed, independent monitors consultants were exposed to a lot, but and if it comes from the pharma or the sponsor side, you really don't want to mess around with that because we want to have jobs later, but sometimes they do cross the line,
yes.
and there is no way to say, okay, this is problematic for me without the sites getting involved.
But the problem is that line at some point is always subjective because you ever seen that color gradient? Like
Hmm.
red,
Hmm.
orange, yellow. Like when can you say this is now instead of red, like so you're looking at it you're like red, 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 and then the orange is like over here. Like, well, when can you start saying orange? And it's like, well, some people will say it earlier. Some people will say,
Hmm.
well, it's definitely not red anymore. It's the same thing with fraud and when is it actually fraud? And it boils down to subjective
Safety.
opinion. I mean, sometimes it's just very objective. This person made up data. Okay. But like to report or not to report something that could be considered part of the condition already. Well, I don't know. I mean, for people, that gradient's gonna shift depending on where you sit as a stakeholder.
So I think that's like the investigator will have more power than me to say that because he will feel like
Yes.
his
Yes.
his reasoning to why he's putting that is being challenged from
Yes.
another person, that it will be a conflict of
But that's why they have
interest.
medical monitors too. They're like, well, doctor, as another
And not
doctor, they're
not
gonna have
everyone,
discussion. It
but what
happens in
about
every
the medical
study.
monitor? Yeah, the medical monitor sometimes doesn't agree with the doctor and it becomes like a little bit eso,
Yeah.
pero
Yeah.
there has to be a way that you protect also the independent contractors here because I had both scenarios. I had where the sponsor is like saying, and the way I cover myself is actually is I report it in my reports and I escalate it. And if it's something that I really think like I would check with three or four or five people, it hasn't happened with me. Like when I have seen badly fraud, the client usually does the due diligence and report and whatever. But in the other ones, I have to, you know, cover myself. So I will report and document what I did. I called the
Yeah.
quality office, reported this on that day. I spoke to this because there's nothing else you can do, honestly, after that, as an
But there's
independent contractor.
and that'll be the panel, the inadequate and adequate monitoring for next year. You're gonna moderate that. We'll see who else is gonna be on the panel. But
Pu- Put
the
another monitor so I can grill them.
well, okay, sure. Well, we have plenty this time around. Elizabeth Weeks Rowe, I think she would do good on that one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we got to start already planning our panels. But
We
just
just finished. We just finished like 2 days ago. Come
Ashley's
on.
already texting us. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
kid you
know.
not. I have 20, no, 38 group messages since the morning about what hotel, what the I haven't read it. But you know, they're working on it. I want to end with this example because
Okay.
there's fraud,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mhm.
laziness.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the laziness looks like fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the fraud is because of laziness. Sometimes because of greed. Those are not the same thing.
Okay.
You can work very hard and do fraud.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
These study outcomes, this is why I recommend, if you're interested to everyone, invest in a biotech, not to lose something you're actually interested in, not one that you're working with, just something you're interested. Like for me, it was this oral epinephrine Listerine strip. Yeah, that's not our type of studies. They're never gonna do studies with us. I'm like, this is interesting. This is
Mm-hmm.
something I can make money on. I enjoy studying it. It helps me learn more about things I'm not doing in research. All right, they had an issue in the study. I still think it's going to get approved, but it's like delayed now.
Okay.
At the dosing centers, which is the site,
Mm-hmm.
they had, you know how sometimes monitors can, if it's like a one dose, the
Yeah,
monitor
we have to
sometimes
witness
observe, right?
dosing. Yeah, we have to witness dosing.
They
Actually,
didn't
for
do it.
some of my contracts, I have to dose witness every single cohort.
They should have done that at this
Mm-hmm.
study. They didn't, and they relied on the phase one site to document. And I think this was an
Mm-hmm.
example of laziness because they only had like 30 patients that would take the strip, leave it for 5 minutes, and then you have PK draws, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out from those 30, there were issues with five of those patients. One of them
Okay.
chewed it, one of them put it and spit it out right away.
Oh,
Another one didn't even know how to open the package and nobody helped. They just like, that's called human factors. The drug, the FDA said, we're rejecting it not because of safety and efficacy, but because of these issues. So they
okay.
have to
Yeah.
redo more
Mm-hmm.
millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Shareholder
Mm-hmm.
like me lost a lot. I'm
Mm-hmm.
buying back. But that shows you right there, if you see the first patient, if like you have to train them beforehand. Hey, I know like you're in the study, you have to, unless you absolutely cannot tolerate it, you have to keep it under your tongue. They interviewed that patient who spit it out, and he said, yeah, I don't like the taste of mint, but if my life depended on it, I would have left it. But that cost millions of dollars, that mistake. Not having
Correct.
a monitor. If a monitor was there and observed that one, it would have just been one issue. They would have they would have made up
Fix
that patient.
yeah.
They would have brought someone up. But instead they let it happen like 5 or 6 times in different ways. The FDA is like 6 out of 30 is significant. You know, we can't trust the data anymore.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's a case of it's not fraud.
But it's a general mistake. It happens.
Yes, but it
And
costs real
I'm
money.
actually a little bit, just in my brain asking questions about, did the, what's the, again, that's something as a risk that should have been caught in the risk
Yeah,
plan. How did you train these
Mm-hmm.
patients? How did
they
you,
didn't.
because I had my site, or the sites that I have worked in the past, they will go 5 minutes, even 5 minutes before dosing, they will go, okay, you open it like this, you put it like
Yes.
this, you're gonna have it like this.
My guess is
And
they
then my,
didn't
yeah,
because
well,
it's a coordinator that has 10 more studies.
but
It's just another thing
it
for them.
doesn't, for that type of studies, it doesn't work like that, because they do have, and especially if it's close rounds, they have more people. I'm just wondering if the dosing team did not know how to handle that, because not a lot of the
Yeah.
sites do strips.
Yep, exactly.
And we have to do a mouthwash, check if there is anything left, things of that
Yeah.
nature.
So something insignificant becomes their competitor now has an extra year to sell
Hmm.
the competition. It's a nasal
Hmm.
spray instead of a strip. All
Yep,
because
yep,
of
yep.
like 6 dosing errors that could have been avoidable with a human. So I recommend everyone check, mess around a little with biotech, but you got to really study it. Don't just gamble because you want to learn something. You want to learn from it as well. But Carla, Jen, amazing. Anything you guys want to mention that you didn't, or we'll just do more. We'll do more pods. Jen has her own
Yeah.
pod. What is your pod? You have a new one.
Unblinded. Mm-hmm.
Unblinded. Shit. They should have been unblinded on that Listerine strip.
I did it because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that they don't talk about on both
Uh-huh.
sides.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm unblinding it all, I guess.
I like the
And you
name.
know what? I don't go to many conferences, but the only one I really try to go is yours,
Thank you.
SOS, because we speak what's going on. We don't hide it. We say this is a problem. This is what we're trying to target, and it's really what's needed. I mean, I wish I would have more time to help some sites around, but yeah, I'm always just a phone call or a link message away if necessary.
Carla, definitely someone you need to get to know. Jen as well. Their links to their LinkedIn is underneath this video. And if you're listening in the show notes, and if you listen to the podcast, you would have heard Jen's beat. Okay. It's very hip, very funky, but it's missing something. You guys let me know what do you think it's missing. It's missing something.
Lyrics.
Ah, yes. We gotta do it, Jen, one of these days. No pressure. I mean,
Okay.
know,
I'll add something to it. Don't worry.
you're a singer, right? I saw your face when that the DJ was like, that girl was going crazy when I started putting R&B. I was like, bro, you know she's a singer, right? Like an actual singer.
I
So
actually have a song. I just haven't showed anyone.
Okay, well, then you should send it out so we can see.
yeah, we have to
I'm
have
gonna
a
send
release
it to
party.
you, just to you two, and you guys
Okay,
give me your
thank you.
feedback, and we'll decide whether we do a release party or not.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
gonna
I
blast
like
it
that.
all over YouTube.
I'm down. Yeah, I'd give you my honest feedback. But yeah, honestly, both of these people, excellent to know, a pleasure to be around, and they both happen to be in Miami. Game changer. Or you, Jen, in Orlando or Miami?
I'm in Orlando now, but I still go to Miami
I
Okay,
often.
know. We
they're
have
both in
already
Florida.
plans. We have already
Yeah,
plans to, connect and hang out and
You guys never met before this, or
nope,
no,
know each other?
no. No
nope.
idea. No idea.
You
And
met
I'm
at
so
SOS.
glad. Yeah, I'm so she was
Yeah.
sitting next to me. I'm like, who's this kid?
Remember when we went to meet for the AI thing?
Yeah, okay,
She was
that was
sitting
that.
next to me. That's when I met her. And now we
Ah,
say we're sisters from another mister.
Mr.
well, that's true.
Correct.
I mean, you guys
Correct.
have a lot of similarities.
And then we were
We do.
dancing around, the floor, putting the
With my
SOS in
little stank
Florida.
face.
See, this is what SOS is supposed to be about,
It's
connections. Yeah. Well, excellent. I'm glad you guys got connected, and we'll do more. We'll do more pods. Um,
sounds good.
everyone go connect with them right now. Stay tuned for more. Bye bye.